You feel it, the relentless drain of trying to be what everyone else wants you to be. Every nod, every forced smile, every small concession chips away at something deeper inside. It's a silent exhaustion, a weight crushing the breath from your lungs, not loud but persistent. You chase approval like it's oxygen, yet the more you reach, the thinner the air becomes. You give pieces of yourself away, hoping for respect that never arrives, only to find your own reflection growing dimmer with each sacrifice. You aren't just tired, you are fragmented, pulled apart by invisible strings, bending to fit molds that never quite fit, contorting into a version of yourself that strangers might like, but you barely recognize. This isn't strength, it's surrender disguised as kindness. You are teaching others how to treat you by letting yourself be diminished, by dissolving your boundaries until all that's left is a shadow of your true self, and beneath it all, a quiet rage simmers, a rage at losing your own voice in the chorus of demands. You wanted respect, but what you found was something else entirely: dependency, a hollow echo of validation that fades as soon as the approval stops. You bend so much that your center no longer holds. Who are you beneath the masks and pleasantries? The question gnaws at your core. You weren't weak, you were wired that way, conditioned to seek safety and acceptance, to avoid the risk of rejection at all costs. But that's where the illusion dies. Constantly pleasing others is a form of bondage disguised as connection. It steals your energy like a silent thief in the night, and with every stolen breath, your identity becomes more fragmented, your power quietly siphoned off. The frustration of this cycle is not just external, it is internal warfare, a battle between the desire to be seen and the fear of being truly known. The more you lose yourself, the more the need to please grows, a vicious loop spiraling into exhaustion. You feel the pull to please because silence feels dangerous, to not respond, to withhold agreement, to say no. These seem like risks you can't afford, so you speak, nod, comply. Yet inside, a slow death occurs. This is not the life of a person who commands respect. It is the life of one who begs for scraps of attention. And it is exhausting in a way that can hollow out even the strongest spirit. The inner conflict is relentless. Part of you craves approval, while another part starves for authenticity. You are caught between two impossible demands: to belong and to be yourself. This tension creates a gnawing dissatisfaction, a silent scream beneath polite smiles. The cost is invisibility to yourself. You become a ghost in your own existence, haunted by the presence of others' expectations. You are exhausted not because you tried too little, but because you tried to be too many. Your true self lies buried beneath layers of conformity, a self silenced by fear of loss. But here is the cruel irony: the more you lose yourself to please, the less respect you earn, both from others and from the one person whose opinion matters most, you. Respect is not granted by agreeing with every demand, but by standing firm in your truth. You have surrendered your inner authority so completely that you no longer recognize the power you once held. This is not weakness, it is a learned response, a survival strategy etched into your mind by years of conditioning. But it is not your final state. The first step toward reclaiming your power is seeing this exhaustion for what it is: the cost of silence when your voice demands to be heard. You are more than the sum of others' expectations. You are a force waiting beneath the surface, quiet but unyielding. The cycle of pleasing must break, because it destroys the very foundation of respect, integrity. Without integrity, respect becomes a currency spent and never earned. The weight you carry now is not a life sentence. It is a signal that something deeper must awaken. This awakening begins with a brutal honesty about what you've lost and what you've been sacrificing. It begins when you confront the silent surrender and refuse to continue the trade. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to be real, to be respected. And respect is a language spoken by those who hold themselves with unshakable authority, not by those who beg for approval. So feel the exhaustion fully, but do not surrender to it. Let it fuel your resolve. The path out of this crushing weight is through the silent reclaiming of your voice. A voice that commands, not pleads, that asserts, not submits. This is your moment to stop shrinking, to stop bending, and to start standing tall. even if it means losing the applause of the crowd. You are not weak for wanting respect. You are strong enough to demand it by honoring the only person who can truly give it, yourself. The journey ahead is not comfortable, but it is necessary, because the exhaustion you feel now is the final breath of a life lived in shadows. Your true life begins when you step into the light of your own unyielding presence. You've already felt the weight, but do you understand why you carry it so willingly? The craving for approval is not a mere habit. It is an unconscious addiction, woven deep into the architecture of your psyche. It begins long before you could name it, forged in the silent chambers where your identity was first shaped by eyes watching, voices judging, and the subtle code of acceptance written into your earliest survival. You weren't weak, you were wired that way. Your ego, that fragile construct of self, becomes a hostage to this craving. It seeks validation as if it were nourishment, feeding on every nod, every glance, every quiet approval like a drug. Without it, the ego feels exposed, vulnerable, naked. This hunger is not simply a desire to be liked, it is a desperate attempt to secure existence itself, to prove that you matter, that you belong. But that's where the illusion begins to fracture, because the respect you get from others when it's built on pleasing is like a brittle glass, beautiful to behold, but ready to shatter under pressure. It never fills the void inside. External respect, when disconnected from internal sovereignty, is an empty currency. It promises safety but delivers fragility, approval but no true power. You build your identity on sand, and every wave of judgment threatens to wash it away. You become a performer in a theater where the audience's applause dictates your sense of self. But what happens when the crowd goes silent? When the need to please no longer finds its stage? Your ego panics, it clings harder to approval, slips deeper into patterns of compliance and codependency, mistaking acquiescence for strength. This is the hidden trap. The more you seek to be liked, the less you own yourself. Approval addiction rewires your brain's reward system. It conditions you to associate acceptance with survival and rejection with annihilation. You're not simply afraid of disapproval. You are conditioned to avoid it at all costs, because disapproval triggers an existential threat. The ego's survival depends on this delicate balance. But here's the brutal truth. Survival at the expense of your autonomy is not survival at all. It's a slow death of the soul. This addiction creates a psychological loop of dependencia, cycle where your self-worth is perpetually tethered to the fleeting judgments of others. You start to mirror, mimic, and modify your true self until authenticity is a distant memory. You lose track of your desires, your boundaries, your voice. Your identity becomes a chameleon's skin, shifting to blend in, always hungry for the next sign of acceptance. That the ego's craving for approval is a form of self-betrayal, cloaked in the guise of connection. It convinces you that pleasing others is the path to peace, but it's actually the road to fragmentation. Every yes you give out of obligation, every silence held to avoid conflict, every smile forced to mask discomfort, these are debts you pay with pieces of your selfhood, and the currency is your power. Yet, in this addiction, you mistake control for freedom. You believe that by being liked, you control how others see you. But you are controlled instead by fear, by habit, by the incessant need to manage impressions. This dynamic strips you of unpredictability, the very essence of power. When your behavior is dictated by others' approval, you become predictable, transparent, and ultimately powerless. The paradox is profound. Approval, sought as a shield, becomes your cage. You lose the ability to say no, to be silent, to stand apart. You trade your voice for a fragile image, and in doing so, invite manipulation. Others sense the craving and exploit it, pulling strings you don't even see. The herd mentality you fear is less a social reality and more a psychological trap, where you are both prisoner and warden. True respect, the kind that resonates deeply, never hinges on pleasing. It rises from an internal authority that is unshakable, immune to the capricious tides of public opinion. It is born when you reclaim sovereignty over your energy, your choices, and your presence. The ego must learn that its worth is inherent, not granted by applause or acceptance. This awakening is both a reckoning and a liberation. You stand at a crossroads, continue down the well-worn path of approval addiction, or step into a new paradigm where respect is earned through authenticity and inner mastery. This choice is not simply psychological, it is existential. To break free, you must recognize the chains that bind your ego and face the void left by lost approval without flinching. This void is not emptiness, but the fertile ground of self-possession. It is where your true identity waits unmasked, unbound, unapologetic. The ego's hunger for approval can be transformed into a quiet confidence that needs no external feeding. It is here that you begin to dismantle the illusions of control through pleasing and reclaim the power that has always been yours. Remember, the craving for approval is not your fault. It is your programming, but it is also your responsibility to reprogram, to step out of. The addiction means to embrace unpredictability, to master silence, and to cultivate presence. Only then will your respect be unshakable, forged not in the approval of others, but in the unwavering sovereignty of your own being. You have long mistaken silence for absence and empty void, a retreat from confrontation. But silence isn't absence, it's authority. It is the strategic fortress behind which your true power resides. Unseen but undeniable, when you withhold words, you disrupt expectations, disarm the impulses of others to control or define you. Silence becomes a weapon forged, not in noise but in restraint, a presence so dense that it commands attention without a single syllable. In a world addicted to chatter and noise, your silence is a radical act of rebellion. It forces others into a new dynamic, a dynamic where they must fill the space you create or respect the boundaries you impose. The less you speak, the more you provoke thought. The more you withhold, the greater the intrigue. Silence cultivates mystery, and mystery breeds respect. People lean in not because you told them to, but because you gave them no choice but to wonder. But strategic silence is not passive, it is active mastery. It requires discipline, presence, and a refusal to be pulled into the reactive noise of external demands. It means recognizing when your voice adds value and when it merely feeds the hunger of others. Expectations. This is the paradox of power. The most commanding presence is often the quietest. You do not need to prove yourself with endless words. Your silence proves it all. Withholding speech is an act of sovereignty. It signals control over your energy and attention to currencies far more valuable than approval. When you master silence, you stop reacting to provocations. You create a space where others must approach you on your terms, learning that your worth is not subject to negotiation. This is the foundation of inner dominance, an unshakable calm that radiates without effort. Silence also sharpens your awareness. It draws you inward, fostering a clarity that noisy compliance cannot provide. In the quiet, you hear your true desires, your fears, your limits. This introspection strengthens your boundaries, making your presence formidable. Others sense this depth instinctively, and they respond with respect, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. The power of silence challenges the illusion that speaking more equals control. Control is not about filling the air with words. It is about owning the space without explanation. It is about letting absence speak louder than presence. This is a mastery few achieve because it requires embracing vulnerability, the vulnerability of stillness, and trusting that your essence is enough. When silence becomes your language, you wield influence effortlessly. It is the strategic pause before a decisive move, the calm eye in the storm of social chaos. You are unpredictable yet present, detached yet deeply engaged. This dynamic is magnetic because it reveals a mind untethered by the need for constant validation. Your silence is a boundary that commands respect and a shield that protects your inner power. You were not designed to be a voice recorder of others' expectations. Your silence is a declaration that you are more than their judgments, more than their demands. It is a fortress built stone by stone through restraint, presence, and clarity within its walls. Your true self grows, unseen but invincible, and in that invincibility, you discover the ultimate freedom, the freedom to be respected on your own terms. Carl Jung spoke of a journey, individuation, the becoming of oneself in totality. This is not a simple process of self-improvement, but a deep, often unsettling confrontation with the parts of you that have been hidden, denied, or distorted. The path to respect, according to Jung, begins not by pleasing the world, but by facing your shadow, the dark, uncomfortable aspects of your identity you have long avoided. To stop pleasing everyone is to embrace the shadow. It is to acknowledge that the persona you present to the world is often a mask shaped by fear and social conditioning. Jung warned that without this confrontation, you remain fragmented, a mere reflection of others' expectations rather than a whole, self-respecting individual. True power flows from integrating these shadows into your conscious being, not from hiding them behind a facade of compliance. Individuation is the process of reclaiming your authentic self. By breaking free from collective illusions, it demands courage to stand apart, to reject the herd mentality that insists on conformity. The desire to please is a symptom of lost identity, a yearning to belong at the expense of your wholeness. Jung's vision teaches that respect is not found in the approval of others, but in the unity of your inner world. This unity is a hard-won prize. It requires you to listen to the parts of yourself that whisper uncomfortable truths, the doubts, the anger, the contradictions. You must integrate these voices, not silence them. In doing so, you build a foundation of self-respect that no external force can shake. The more whole you become internally, the less you need to seek validation externally. Jung's shadow work reveals why people-pleasing erodes respect. It fractures the self and obscures your true power. When you deny parts of yourself to gain acceptance, you send a signal to the world that you are incomplete, uncertain, and malleable. Others sense this and respond accordingly. The price of approval is your authenticity, and the cost is invisibility. The path of individuation is not easy. It asks for relentless honesty and the willingness to be uncomfortable, but it promises liberation, freedom from the chains of pleasing, from the tyranny of others' expectations. It invites you to stand firmly in your truth, even if it means standing alone. In this solitude, you find a profound respect that no crowd can bestow. Respect, then, is a natural consequence of inner unity. It arises spontaneously when you embody your whole self, shadows included. You no longer need to negotiate your worth because you know it intrinsically. This is not arrogance, but clarity, a clarity born of self-acceptance and courage. To stop pleasing everyone is to answer Jung's call to become whole. It is the ultimate act of self-respect and the foundation of true power. In this wholeness, you command respect effortlessly, not through words or actions, but through the undeniable presence of a soul fully realized. Presence is your most potent weapon, not in what you say, but in how you occupy space. It transcends words and persuasion. It is the magnetic force that anchors you fully in the moment, refusing to be pulled into the chaotic tides of approval and expectation. Presence is not something you manufacture, it is cultivated, a mental fortress where your sovereignty reigns unchallenged. To command respect, you must first command yourself. To cultivate presence, begin with the simple act of anchoring your attention. Notice the sensations of your body, the weight of your feet, the rhythm of your breath, the undeniable reality of now. When your mind drifts to the desire for approval or the fear of rejection, gently return to this anchor. This practice fractures the habit of seeking external validation and grounds you in the certainty of your own being. Presence is born not from control over others, but mastery over your inner landscape. Presence is unpredictability in its most refined form. When you are truly grounded, your reactions are not scripted or rehearsed. They are spontaneous yet deliberate. Others sense this unpredictability instinctively. You are neither a puppet to their expectations nor a prisoner of your own fears. This fluidity creates a dynamic where respect emerges naturally because you are not attempting to fit a mold, you are creating your own form. Being present also means embracing discomfort without fleeing. Approval-seeking urges thrive in the shadows of avoidance. They whisper to you to appease, to smooth over, to explain yourself. But presence is the still point in the storm, the unwavering gaze that meets discomfort head-on without flinching. This courage commands respect because it reveals a mind that is free and unyielding, a spirit that refuses to be diminished. Mental strategies for presence are not tricks. They are disciplines, the practice of observing your thoughts without attachment, the ritual of mindful breathing to disrupt anxiety, the cultivation of silent pauses in conversation all train you to inhabit your own authority. Presence becomes a lived experience, an unspoken assertion that you are here, fully yourself, and no external force can dictate your worth. In this state, you stop chasing approval because you no longer require it to validate your existence. Your energy is no longer scattered, but focused and contained. Others feel this concentration like a gravitational pull, drawn to your certainty without needing to know why. This is the essence of inner sovereignty, the command of your own space. Unbothered by the transient whims of external opinion. Being present also means embracing discomfort without fleeing. Approval-seeking urges thrive in the shadows of avoidance. They whisper to you to appease, to smooth over, to explain yourself. But presence is the still point in the storm, the unwavering gaze that meets discomfort head-on without flinching. This courage commands respect because it reveals a mind that is free and unyielding, a spirit that refuses to be diminished. Mental strategies for presence are not tricks. They are disciplines, the practice of observing your thoughts without attachment, the ritual of mindful breathing to disrupt anxiety, the cultivation of silent pauses in conversation all train you to inhabit your own authority. Presence becomes a lived experience, an unspoken assertion that you are here, fully yourself, and no external force can dictate your worth. In this state, you stop chasing approval because you no longer require it to validate your existence. Your energy is no longer scattered, but focused and contained. Others feel this concentration like a gravitational pull, drawn to your certainty without needing to know why. This is the essence of inner sovereignty, the command of your own space. Unbothered by the transient whims of external opinion. Presence is a silent language that requires no explanation, no justification. It says, I am enough, I am here, I am in control. When you master this language, respect follows as naturally as night follows day. It is not demanded. It is earned through the power of being fully and unapologetically yourself in every moment. Detachment is the liberation from the endless chains of expectation that bind you to others' judgments. It is the mental discipline that shifts you from desperate approval seeking to calm, unemotional self-possession. Detachment does not mean coldness or disconnection. It means emotional sovereignty, the ability to observe external opinions without being consumed by them. This is a revolution of the mind, a reclaiming of power from the noise of judgment. The craving for approval hooks you into a reactive cycle where every word, every gesture is calculated to appease or please. Detachment breaks this cycle. It allows you to witness others' expectations as passing clouds, not storms that determine your internal weather. This shift does not happen overnight. It requires rigorous practice to separate your sense of self from the fluctuating judgments of those around you. Emotional control is the core of detachment. You learn to regulate your responses, to feel without being overwhelmed. Instead of reacting impulsively to criticism or praise, you hold a steady center. This calmness is a form of resistance against manipulation, a fortress where your power is preserved. Detachment is not numbness. It is clarity, a clear-eyed recognition that your worth is independent of external approval. Psychologically, detachment rewires your relationship with validation. You no longer seek it compulsively because you have internalized your own value. The voices of judgment lose their grip, becoming mere background noise instead of commanding forces. This mental emancipation is the foundation of true respect, because respect given from a place of fear or desperation is never genuine. Detachment also means embracing uncertainty. When you stop clinging to approval, you accept that some will disapprove, and that is not your problem. This acceptance frees you from the exhausting burden of control. You become unpredictable, not because you are erratic, but because you refuse to be trapped by others' expectations. Your power grows in this space of freedom. In detachment, you cultivate emotional independence, the ability to relate to others without losing yourself. This does not isolate you. It connects you more authentically. On your own terms, you engage from a place of strength, not neediness. Your presence becomes magnetic because it is untainted by the craving for approval. The discipline of detachment is a radical act of self-respect. It preserves your energy, sharpens your focus, and elevates your presence. It is the quiet rebellion of a mind that refuses to be owned by the approval addiction. Through detachment, you reclaim the power that was quietly surrendered and step into a domain where your inner sovereignty is absolute. Unpredictability is the covert psychological tactic that disrupts the predictable patterns others use to manipulate and label you. When you break free from compliance, you shatter the scripts written for you by social expectation. This disruption creates a new space, one where respect is no longer earned by conformity, but by the refusal to be boxed in. Humans are wired to seek patterns. They crave predictability because it offers control. When you act predictably, you become an open book, easy to read, easy to manipulate. But unpredictability shatters this illusion. It introduces a dynamic tension, a sense that you cannot be anticipated or controlled. This tension breeds respect because it demands engagement on your terms. Unpredictability is not chaos. It is strategic freedom. It is choosing when to engage and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to hold silence. It is the ability to shift your stance without warning, keeping others off balance and unable to impose their will. This fluidity is a sign of inner mastery, a refusal to be corralled by expectations. By breaking patterns of compliance, you reclaim your autonomy. You send a message, I will not be your puppet. This message resonates deeply because it challenges the herd mentality that underpins social manipulation. In unpredictability, you carve out a domain of respect that is immune to the whims of collective judgment. Respect born of unpredictability is unshakable because it is rooted in self-possession. It does not depend on others' approval but on the refusal to conform. This defiance is not rebellion for its own sake, but a strategic assertion of identity. It is the psychological armor of those who have mastered themselves. Unpredictability also invites curiosity and intrigue. Others find themselves drawn to the enigma. You become a presence that cannot be easily categorized or dismissed. This magnetism is a form of power that does not need words. It speaks through the unpredictable rhythm of your being. To cultivate unpredictability, you must first master presence and detachment. Only then can you move fluidly between engagement and withdrawal, control and surrender. This balance creates a dynamic tension that commands respect organically. It is the art of being fully yourself without apology or explanation. In the final analysis, unpredictability is the refusal to be contained, a declaration that your identity is your own and no external force will define it. It is the silent strategy of those who command respect through inner mastery and unyielding authenticity. You have traveled a long path from the exhaustion of pleasing to the liberation of presence, detachment, and unpredictability. Now you stand in full command of your inner world, a fortress built not on words or actions, but on unwavering clarity and control. True respect arises not from pleading or explanation, but from the silent mastery of self. Emotional control is your crown. It is the calm that radiates beneath the surface storms, the steady hand that guides without hesitation. In this control, you hold the power to choose your responses, to remain unshaken by external chaos. This mastery is not weakness, but the highest form of strength because it requires conquering the turbulence within. Before facing the world, clarity is your sword. It cuts through confusion, doubt, and distraction. With clarity, your identity is no longer fragmented by others' expectations, but whole and resolute. You know who you are and what you stand for, and this knowledge radiates effortlessly. Clarity dispels the need for approval, replacing it with the quiet confidence of self-possession. Together, control and clarity form the unbreakable core of personal power. This power is silent but profound. It does not shout, it commands. It does not explain, it asserts. You become a presence that others recognize instinctively, a force that demands respect without negotiation. Respect is no longer a currency you seek, but a natural consequence of your inner sovereignty. It is earned through strategic silence, grounded presence, calm detachment, and unyielding authenticity. This is the respect that cannot be taken away because it is rooted deep within. Beyond the reach of others' judgments, you have moved beyond the exhausting cycle of pleasing. You have stepped into the domain of true mastery, where your power is self-generated and self-sustained. This is the inner fortress from which you operate, a fortress built on psychological awakening and strategic, emotional control. As you stand in this clarity and control, remember, respect is not given lightly, nor is it demanded easily. It is won through the consistent practice of being fully yourself, silent, present, detached, unpredictable, and whole. In this state, you no longer chase approval because you are the source of your own respect. This is your destiny: to command, respect through inner clarity and control, to be unshakable in the face of judgment, and to live as a sovereign force in a world that often confuses noise with power. The journey is complete, but the mastery is eternal. You have become the authority. You sought the silent ruler of your own identity.